All right, well, welcome to everybody. My name's Chris McCollum, and I'm with AcuMax Index, and it is 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Good morning to everybody that's joining the call from our area, and then good afternoon or good evening for the folks that are joining from Europe. Thank you for attending the Learning from the Horses and the AcuMax Index webinar. This will go on for 30 minutes. The lobby is filling up, so we're going to want to go ahead and get started. If you have any issues with audio or video, just please, or if you have questions throughout the presentation, please use the hand icon in your little dashboard, and then I will quickly attend to that, or at least as fast as I can. So again, my name's Chris McCollum. Today, we have a guest, somebody that's been with AcuMax Index since 2015, and Ellen Patnaud and Danny Leach are owners of LeadQuine, and they have incorporated AcuMax Index into their training and development program that utilizes horses. It's a very unique, very exciting program that people are taking a lot from. However, they're also going to focus on some outcomes that you can take away even if you have never done anything like this, or if you don't plan to do anything like this. But if you are interested in this type of experience, please reach out to Ellen, reach out to me, reach out to Danny, and we can help you with that. And for those of you who are applying AcuMax Index in unique ways, reach out to me and we can get you on a webinar as well. So again, thank you so much for participating in today's call. And I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Ellen and Danny to get us started.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As Chris said, Danny and I own LeadQuine, and we wanted to start by just doing a little bit of full disclosure so that we can show you who we are. And I don't know, oh, there we go. So this is who we are. Those of you familiar with how this index works, you can see that we are pretty different. We have different styles. Our drives are all in opposite sides of the line, which makes our business both challenging and exciting. We complement each other and balance out really well. We try to go for the balance that helps us utilize each other's strengths and capitalize on those, but I'm not going to lie, sometimes there's some real challenges. My highest A gets in the way, my lowest C causes some impatience, and Danny's got to pull in the reins and slow me down, just like with our horses. So anyway.
Well, and you could say that I could speak up more and be a little bit more flexible in the process, you know?
Oh, I really love this admission. See, a webinar is good for our business relationship as well. So moving on, we just wanted to share a little bit about what we do. We actually use the AcuMax Index throughout our business. So here's just a couple of ways. We have a series of workshops focused in the classroom. This one is an example called Think, Speak, and Act Like a Leader. We use the AcuMax Index in this to help managers who have any level of experience think about their management style and how they can improve their skills through understanding their hardwired tendencies. We know that this is not a predictor of behavior or personality, but certainly those hardwired tendencies really come through when it comes to management and leadership experiences. So this is a course that helps people think about those areas of development through the lens of the AcuMax Index. We also do a workshop called Food for Thought. This is actually Jay's invention. He did this several years ago, and it was a memorable experience for the crowd he did it with, so he shared it with us. And we've done a few of these where we pair learning about the AcuMax Index profile, learning about your profile with the courses of a meal. So it's a totally different and unique take on a working lunch. People have a good time with that. We also do a presentation skills class. There you can see Danny and I in the front if you wanted to know what we look like. There we are down front. In presentation skills, understanding your profile in terms of what your strengths and limitations are as a presenter, as well as how to anticipate the style of your audience so that you can connect with them as effectively as possible, can be a really powerful way to enhance your presentation skills. So we use that through there. And then finally, we do executive coaching and advising, where we partner with executives or managers who are looking to up their game. And the AcuMax Index gives them great insight into their tendencies and how they're likely to manage other people and make decisions. We also can run the profile for their team to do a 360 with them, so that they get a fuller view of areas of opportunity for their development. So those are some of the ways that we use the index, but the way that we're here to talk about it today is how we use it with our horses. So this is a shot from a workshop that we did back in May with an engineering firm in Flint, Michigan. And so learning from the horses is technically known as equine guided learning. This is actually an established field. It's very different from equine guided therapy. You have to be a licensed mental health worker for that, which we are not. So it's not therapy. However, many people tend to find it to be a therapeutic experience to be in with the horses. So it has a therapeutic aspect, but it's definitely not therapy. So to our knowledge, LeadQuine is the only company in the world that does equine guided learning and uses the AcuMax Index in those workshops. So we're pretty sure that is our main market differentiator. So this is a picture from the room that's next to the arena, and we always start in a room separate from the horses, although as you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner there, that would be Duke, who is peering in through the window because the horses are never far. They want to watch us through the glass, and they want to know why we're not coming into the arena to pay attention to them. But we use this as a space where people can focus and concentrate on just understanding a little bit about their AcuMax Index profile. We give a high-level overview, and then we go through drive by drive. And after some discussion about that particular drive's characteristics, then we move into the arena to do an activity that puts that on display for people. So this is a picture from one of the activities. This is an example of an activity where teams had to partner with a horse and navigate an obstacle course while holding a wiffle ball on a spoon. And so, so it is a, what?
Yeah, I was pointing out to notice like the different sizes of horses that we use as well.
Yeah, we have a variety of horses in our herd. We actually have a couple of mini donkeys. They're there in the very background, and a mini mule who you're going to hear more about because she's unique and a little obnoxious. And then we have some full-size horses as well. So anyway, we used this particular activity to help people think about their C drive because there was time pressure involved and specific steps that had to be followed in order to be successful. And so while they were thinking about their C drive, obviously they noticed plenty of other traits from other drives as well. But this is a great way for them to be very present in the moment. When you're in an arena with these animals, it's impossible to be distracted by your phone or, let your mind wander. You're very, very present in the moment because
or to posture because of your title or, position in the company. I mean, you can't be use your title as a way to influence people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the horses could care less. They don't care how much money you make. They don't care what your position is. They care what kind of a leader you are and how well you're leading them. And so they give very direct feedback, very immediate feedback about what they think of what you're doing. And we'll talk even more about that in a moment with a couple of stories. So I also wanted to just point out, you'll notice everybody wears a name tag. So this is one of the activities that we have is called blind catch and halter, where people have to actually catch and halter a horse, or in this case, one of the mini donkeys, while being blindfolded. We have those name tags for everybody so that people can remember. It's a lot of information to take in, right? So they want to be able to remember, wait a minute, am I a high A or a low A? Where did I fall in this spectrum again? And then they want to be able to look at other people around them to remember, oh yeah, that's right, we're focusing on the C drive for this one. I'm a low C, you're a high C. Let me think about how does that mean I have to adjust what I'm going to say to you in this moment. So it just, using those name tags that are part of the system are hugely beneficial in all of the workshops that we do, but particularly in this one where people are leaving the rest of their written materials in the room. This was a picture we included just because we thought it was a great picture of Leanne there on the far right. She she's the highest A, and well, you can kind of see that coming out in her expression. She was pretty exasperated at her partner, like, why did you do it that way? That wasn't the right way to do it. So anyway, just a little bit of fun there. And of course, Daisy, the mini donkey, because she's cute. All right, so this is an activity that's called Saddle Up, and we use this to put the D drive on display, as well as to show how the C drive can influence things when patience is critical to success in the process. So it's a little bit harder to see in this photo, but the three people that are crouching down there are linked. Their arms are linked. So the gentleman with the glasses on his face in the center, he's what we call the brain. And he's the only person that's allowed to speak during this activity. The two people on each of his arms are the respective arms. So you can see the woman who is reaching over the saddle. She is the right arm of the operation. The gentleman with the sunglasses on top of his head, he is the left arm. They are only allowed to use those arms, and they are not allowed to speak. They are only allowed to execute the exact directions given to them by the brain. So the gentleman in the center, we did this on purpose, is a low D, and he's a lowest C. So he's also one of the principal owners of the company. So he's in a position where he's got to give direction to people, but he's used to communicating that direction at a very high level. So he gives instruction and then turns people loose to figure out how to do it, because in alignment with his own wiring, that's how he likes to be instructed. However, the two people that he was paired with were highest Ds, and they were frustrated, as they sometimes are in real life, at the level of direction they were receiving from him, because it wasn't enough for them to feel confident in executing their task. So while he was feeling like, I don't want to micromanage you, they were saying, that's fine, but we need you to give us more directions. So he was giving very broad directions, which they were choosing to interpret literally, because that's what they were instructed to do. And he wasn't able to get the task accomplished well because he wasn't giving specific enough directions. I'm not going to lie, the debrief that we did after this activity was a little bit tense, because he was really frustrated that they wouldn't just take the meaning of what he was saying, the intent behind what he was saying, and execute the specific steps. And they were giving it back to him saying, yes, but you didn't tell us explicitly what to do, and that's what was called for. That was what was required. So ultimately, they were able to get to a place where they recognized that this is a pattern that's very similar to what happens in the real life, everyday business of their company. So it was a learning opportunity for all of them, because they had an insight about behavior that they had never had with other, professional development experiences or just normal everyday conversation in the workplace. So it's a way to show that the breakthroughs that people have in an arena doing an experiential activity using a horse sometimes gives them a fresh perspective on these things in a way that the everyday stuff doesn't have the opportunity to do so. And in that spirit, I'm gonna show this picture and let Danny take over with another story of Lily. She features in a lot of our stories.
Right. So Lily is a very what I would call an opinionated creature that is not afraid to let you know that she's not happy with what you're doing, or she's just had it with your lack thereof of direction. So in a previous program, not this one, we had a guy named Bill, who is he's the owner of an architecture firm, and his profile is a highest A, lowest C. So he very much preferred his ideas to hers, and wanted and had little patience for her process. So, in order to accomplish some of the goals of some of the activities, and rather than try to meet her where she's at and try to understand how to get her to meet the objectives, he would rather just push her, because she's small and he was big, and he would rather just try to push her to do what he wanted physically. And she would throughout the day show signals with her ears, with her tail. We notice, because that's our job, we observe the horses and then interpret that for people in the debriefs. And so she would flatten her ears, much like in that picture, or she would kind of slit her eyes in a way, and she would swish her tail with her impatience with whatever somebody was doing. And she was showing all the signs of like not liking how he was imposing his ideas. And so rather than listen to her, he just kept trying to push her with his ideas. And eventually, by the end of the day, she had had enough of his heavy-handedness, and she kicked him in the shin. So
not very hard,
right? Yeah, much to our like horrification and like his like, what the hell just happened? So like after every activity, we do a debrief to say what did happen in there, and so we talked about it in the group, and we said, well, this is what we noticed. We noticed her signals, and we noticed you not listening, and he was like, kind of like at an aha moment of, well, does this mean like, and so, one of his colleagues was sitting next to him. And so he says, does this mean that, I operate this way in the workplace? And the colleague was like, well, Bill, you heard it from the horse's mouth. Yeah, actually, you are a little bit unwilling to hear other people's ideas, and you're very much, kind of a heavy-handed person when it comes to your ideas. And he was kind of taken back, and maybe, a little like, upset, a bruised ego maybe, but he was like, I really want to do something different about it, because, we're all like have to, achieve goals in life and in our jobs. And so we need to talk about what can I do differently to, and what can you do to hold me accountable kind of conversation. And we thought that was pretty fantastic.
So like Danny mentioned, after each activity, we do have a facilitated debrief. So here's a picture of one of our groups debriefing. You can notice the blonde woman off to the far left. She's wearing a LeadQuine shirt. We carry our own AcuMax Index hardwiring chart on our chests as well, so that people can see us as well, full disclosure. So she's facilitating a debrief of one of those activities in the arena with a group designed to just help people make those connections between what they experienced in the arena and what they see and experience at work, and the way those things are linked. So what have we learned from all of this? And we tried to frame this in a way that you could apply this even if you never come visit us and do a horse workshop with us, although we'd be happy to have you. We tried to pull some things out that we learn more generally speaking. So one thing is, we've noticed sometimes when we're sharing the AcuMax Index profile results with a group, sometimes there's a little bit of resistance. People don't always believe that their profile is completely accurate. Maybe they can see a couple of the drives or maybe 3 of the drives as very accurate, but they might question one of the drives. And sometimes it's hard to come up with good examples that can persuade them of that. We've found that anything that is experiential, anything that allows people to just go through and experience themselves, to see for themselves, helps overcome that resistance. And then we don't have to explain it or persuade them. They convince themselves because they see it for themselves. So interactive learning works. That's another big takeaway that we've had from this process. Experience really is the most powerful teacher. And then finally, too much information can be counterproductive. So too many details, if we try to tell people their profiles all at once, even in the classroom, we'll go one drive at a time, and in between each drive, we'll do some kind of an activity where they're brainstorming something together, or they're having a discussion, or they're getting up and moving around and doing a playful activity, anything that gives them a chance to process it through an experience, because too much information can be overwhelming, and then they're not able to absorb it all. And this is such a robust tool. We really want them, excuse me, to take as much away from it as they can. So finally, what can you apply from all of this stuff that we've learned from this? One is, get out of the office. If you can get out of your everyday space as a team, it helps force people to see things from a different perspective. You change their paradigm, you change the lens that they're viewing things through, and you're going to get a different experience regardless of what you do while you're out of the office. So changing of location is key. Something else I just sort of alluded to in the previous slide, break down the information in a way that people can digest it more easily. So because this is such a robust tool and has so much people can take from it, breaking it down into bite-sized pieces will help them be able to process it and then apply it, which ultimately that's what we want them to do, right? Last but not least, base it in reality. So a theoretical discussion about this stuff can impede people from owning their profiles as much. So using examples as much as possible. One workshop in a classroom that we did, there was one manager speaking to a fellow manager who was struggling to see that he really was a highest C. And the first manager gave him a couple of concrete examples from the shop floor where he had seen this guy's profile show up that really kind of showed he is a highest C. And so basing it in those examples that allow people to say, oh, okay, I get it, and sort of connect the dots from them for themselves can really be quite powerful to the experience. So that's what we've got. We'd be happy to take any questions that you might have about this and go from there. And I'm going to let Chris moderate that and you tell us what you need from us, Chris.
Thanks, Ellen, and thank you, Danny, for going through how AcuMax Index is applied within your LeadQuine training. Very exciting. I especially like the story about Lily and the high A owner. That story always makes me laugh. So before I ask some questions, let's leave it up to the lobby here. Use your dashboard, use the little hand icon if you have a question and write the question in. I can also take you off mute, but I would rather not do that to everybody in case there's some background noise coming from your different locations. So before I ask a question, let's open up the floor here. Any questions from any of the attendees for Danny or Ellen? So Ellen, can you talk a little bit about, just going back to the situation with Lily and the individual that was kicked? And lightly kicked, I should add. Some people might be thinking about what are the types of safety discussions or safety drills that you have prior to a session like this?
That's a great question. And so, yeah, I would like to emphasize that really she touched him with her hoof more than actually kicked him because she could have hurt him if she wanted to. And what she wanted to do was alert him to the fact that she was at her limit before she got violent.
Yeah, he wasn't listening to her other cues.
Yeah. So I want to say two things about what we do for safety precautions. First of all, we carry very good insurance, but I mean, we do have good insurance, but I'm just being funny. At the very beginning of the workshop, we do a safety demonstration. So we familiarize the participants with the different zones of the horse, different cues and signals that you can give the horse to tell them what you want, but also some of the cues and signals that you should be watching for. The experience with Bill was one of our earliest workshops, and honestly that was an important learning for us, is that we have to intervene sooner when we see things happening. And so I'm happy to say 3 years later we have never had another experience where someone has gotten kicked or touched with a hoof because we haven't allowed it to get to that point. So this workshop we did with the engineering firm in Flint was the largest one we'd ever done. There were 28 participants in the arena. Typically the group is more like 10 or 15. With 28 people in the room, we had 7 facilitators in the room. So we had one facilitator assigned to every horse that was part of the program, and then one person that was sort of the ringleader or master of ceremony to oversee the entire thing. But each facilitator assigned to a horse, that was their job. Watch what's happening during every activity where there's 3 or 4 people involved. Keep an eye on your horse's behavior. If you see their signals showing that they're getting ready to react, make sure that you don't let it get to a point where someone's going to get hurt. And we had tremendous success. Like I said, in the 3 years since that incident with Bill, we have never had another incident like that. So I like to think both the safety demonstration that we include up front, as well as having a facilitator with every single horse paired up, it puts us in a position to be really well prepared to keep that from happening again.
Thank you for answering that. And it's usually a question that folks are thinking about in regards to whether they're doing a high ropes course or a team building activity. And there's so many safety standards that are put into place for these types of experiential learning activities that your drive to the location is probably more dangerous than the actual activity itself. It looks like we have a question here from, let's see, from Ed. Hey, Ed, I think you're asking a question. I took you off mute.
Yes, thanks. I just had a question for Ellen. Ellen, do you select animals to work with certain profiles? Would you select, for example, a certain type of animal to work with a certain type of individual?
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't really thought about that before. We haven't in the past, to be honest with you. Our herd is made up of very different personalities, though, and so that's an interesting point. For example, Roger, who is a very playful pony, he likes shenanigans. He loves people, and he really gets in your face, and he's quite playful in his approach. It would be interesting to pair him with a highest A, lowest C to see how they handled that. Same thing with Lily, honestly, because she's very sassy and I think vexed Bill in the example that we gave.
Yeah.
And as a fellow highest A, lowest C, she vexes me quite often as well. So yeah, that's an interesting point. It's not something that I thought about before, but I think it's something we should definitely consider. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, but we look at we try to emulate the workplace, and we don't always get to choose our coworkers or bosses, and so you kind of have to manage what you're dealt in any situation in work and in life. So it's like kind of like a roll of the dice kind of thing of who you're paired with. So yeah,
and the dynamics of the herd really do mimic the dynamics of a team, which is the whole premise that equine guided learning was founded on, which that's not our original concept. Just pairing it with AI is, but it's based on this premise that the dynamics of that herd and the dynamics of the team are very similar. And so it really, the donkeys have a completely different nature than the horses do. And so it really is a crapshoot who you get paired with and how do you manage this situation. And maybe it's seamless and really easy to get along with one horse, and with another one, you have a totally different set of challenges. So yeah, so it's a good point.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Ellen, what's the time commitment that if somebody is thinking about doing something like this? How long does a workshop last?
That's a great question. So we've tried doing it in shorter half-day sessions, and it just seems to really cut the experience short. It doesn't allow for enough time. So we have positioned this as an all-day off-site experience that a team can have. And whether you're coming off-site to our outdoor location or we're going to one of the many arenas in the greater metropolitan Detroit area that we partner with to be in an indoor space, we sort of ask people to arrive, 8:30 in the morning. We kick things off by 9 o'clock, and then by 3:30, we're wrapping things up. So people have time to commute there. They have time to commute back home, but it really is kind of a full day off-site because it's a lot to absorb in terms of the profile and then the different activities. People don't want to leave. They're having a great time. So we found that doing it shorter than a full day kind of interferes with that experience. So that's a really long answer to say it's typically a full day off-site commitment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this sounds like a very exciting project, and anybody that's doing any type of training, whether it's something as exciting as incorporating it with horses or your own type of created application of AcuMax Index, just know that AI can be used to enhance many of these trainings, as you heard on this call here. If you want any more information, please reach out to me via email. You can call me also with Ellen and Danny as well with LeadQuine. They'd be more than happy to speak with you about this experience in more detail. Thank you so much for attending this webinar, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day or evening, depending on where you're calling from. Goodbye,
Thanks.
everybody. Thank you.